BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, farmers demonstrate over the Scottish budget for farming.
We're just trying to get a fair portion of the budget for the farming community. The country needs us. You can survive without a lot of things, but you can't survive without food.
More on that later. First, though, the final of the 3 finalists in our Farming for the Future category of the BBC Food and Farming Awards. An innovative farmer with a restless curiosity. Andrew Howard farms in Kent. He's a regen farmer, and he's invited scientists, conservationists and agri-tech businesses onto his arable farm to test theories in a multitude of on-farm trials. He's currently testing out drones that use AI to analyse crop nutrition and experimenting with adding compost extract to his soils when planting seeds. Well, I'm judging this year alongside the Archers actor Lucy Speed. She plays farm manager Stella. So we set off in glorious sunshine to pay Andy a visit.
See the pigeon? It's not a pet pigeon.
Oh my God, he's happy.
He's eaten so many lentils off the ground that he can't eat, he can't fly. He can't fly.
Why
like
are there so many lentils on the ground?
Well, we had 70 mil of rain in the last 3 weeks before harvest and they got knocked out.
Unusually, we have your customer with us. Josiah Meldrum from Hogmadod's.
We are a customer because we do buy the lentils and we buy other crops from Andy as well, but we're also kind of co-learning how to grow this crop.
Given that there are so many places around the world which can very successfully grow lentils, in the nicest way, why bother here?
We're facing all sorts of uncertainty, climate change, increasingly volatile global markets, and also we need to do more for our soil. And one of the amazing things about lentils is that they do that thing that all pulse crops do, is that they work with soil bacteria to fix nitrogen, and that's a really useful thing.
It makes me laugh because I was about to talk about how lovely and warm it was, and then you can maybe hear the rain just starting. OK, let's head to the shed.
There you go. That's better.
As you've probably discovered, Andy's an incredibly innovative farmer. And so if I say to Andy, we'd like to try bicropping lentils, he said, when do we start?
And this will be the 5th year, I think, of lentils this year. And we've grown it with linseed, that didn't work. Oats, that was OK. Camelina, which has worked apart from this year when the slugs had them all.
So how do you separate then the lentils from, in this year's case, the camelina that you grew it with?
I don't. We have a separator.
Yeah.
We use this, which we built ourselves, which is behind you.
There's a lot of we built it ourselves on this farm, isn't there?
I wanted to do a lot more intercropping and growing things together. But one of the biggest barriers is the buyers. Most buyers, they just want beans and they just want oats. And you tell them, I'm going to send you a lorry load of beans and oats together. Like, no, you're not. So we needed to learn how to build our own machine to separate it. And that is one of the biggest barriers at the moment to intercropping, which is why with our other crops, so say our wheat, which is our main crop, we do variety blends. So that means you get lots of different types of wheat, varieties of wheat. They've all got strengths and weaknesses. And if you grow them by themselves, like we had one variety this year we grew it by ourselves, its weakness was a disease called rust, and it absolutely decimated it. The next door field, I put 5 varieties mixed together in the field, and that was fine.
It's really important to trial and continue to trial, but you've got to give up your land and take the punt on doing it. How does that weigh on you as somebody who's trying to farm to keep your head above water at the same time?
With the co-op trial and the robotics trial that we also do, we're funded, and also do some consulting.
As you can probably hear, it is hosing it down there.
British weather.
This is called Farming for the Future, this award. And there are so many different people going in different directions. Is this Farming for the Future?
I think in here we've got a good mix. I mean, we've got the robotic side, so that's something in the future, but that can't be done without the environment and the biology. It's trying to blend all those things together to have a sustainable farm for my children or for everyone in 20, 30 years' time. And it's just not one thing. It's a systems approach.
You can hear more about Andy's farm at 6:30 on Sunday morning here on BBC Radio 4 on Your Farm. The awards ceremony in Glasgow is on Monday, and we'll reveal the winner of the Farming for the Future category on Farming Today on Tuesday. Now, Cumbria may not be the first place you'd think of when thinking about growing veg here in the UK. But this week, as we focus on winter veg, we've come across a network of farmers and growers there who are feeding an increasing appetite for local, sustainably produced vegetables. Growing in fields and polytunnels, the Homegrown Here co-operative sells at farmers' markets and delivers hundreds of weekly veg boxes to doorsteps around the county. Helen Milliken has been to meet the founder, Lynn Barnes, who she found loading her van with freshly harvested winter vegetables ready for market, helped by one of her team, Abby Lawson.
Okay, here are the Swedes in varying sizes. There was one the other day that was 2.5 kilos. Someone actually bought it at the market. I was very surprised. Potatoes. These are Richard's onions. They've been a bit of a slower crop this year. Very exciting to finally have some greenery.
We grow perpetual spinach out in the field. That's all picked by hand, one leaf at a time. Chard as well.
And then this is our kale, red kale, which is one of the most classic varieties. This is one of our best winter crops because it keeps cropping throughout the winter. It's hardy and actually starts tasting nicer after it's been frosted.
This is a positive cornucopia. So how has this evolved, Lynn? Because you didn't start out this big, did you?
No, it just started with 20 families who said that they would be prepared for me to grow veg for them. 2 farmers came on board and we set up the cooperative, and then that's just grown slowly year on year. So now we've got near enough 400 box scheme members, so we send out 230, 240 veg bags a week.
So how do you plan your planting? Presumably there has to be collaboration and communication with growers, with farmers.
There's a lot comes into play. We work backwards from the number of box scheme members that we've got. They all need at least 1 kilo of spuds a week, so you know that you need to put however many tons of potatoes in the ground. We don't all grow the same thing. All 10 of us sit down and crop plan together, decide what we're going to grow, what's best where. We've got one grower who's very south in the county, almost kind of on the beach. Very sandy soils, very free draining, great for carrots and potatoes, those kind of crops. We have tried to grow potatoes here, but we wouldn't do that again. That was silly. And then crop rotation as well. So if somebody's had brassicas for 1 year, they can't really grow them again on that same area of land. So we're thinking about moving crops between growers as well.
What is the biggest challenge of growing in a county like Cumbria?
We don't have any grade 1 soils here. It's not arable territory at all. So you're up against various things, definitely weather and pests. Pests have been a pain this year. They've been a pest, in fact.
Real pests, It's mostly been slugs and pheasants that we've just, it's very frustrating.
The other thing is logistics, because we're cooperative growers and we're not just all in one place, we're around the county. Moving things around and getting everything in the right place at the right time, that just takes a bit of thinking through. We chop and change with our harvesting date. We always look at the weather. We're constantly thinking, do we want to be in this field in the rain? Of course, your crops are ready at different points at different times around the county, so nothing is the same week in, week out for a whole year.
How has your collaboration with local farmers enhanced what you do, not just in terms of the amount of veg that you can produce, but in terms of your awareness of the way things are grown and what will work?
I think a lot. They've all been brilliant, actually, and they're really supportive, and you do get absolutely in tune with other things, not just veg, but livestock as well. They all play an important part. When we clear off a field, we'll have some sheep in there and they'll paddle in our cornstarch that we use as a weed suppressant. So we do work in harmony with our local farmers.
Lynn Barnes there from the Homegrown Here veg cooperative in Cumbria. Scottish farmers are demanding a bigger agriculture budget from the Scottish Government. Hundreds of farmers and crofters joined a rally outside the Scottish Parliament yesterday to lobby MSPs ahead of next week's Scottish budget and also to protest against the UK Government's decision to put inheritance tax on farmland.
We're just trying to get a fair portion of the budget for the farming community. The country needs us. You can survive without a lot of things, but you can't survive without food.
Coming down from Orkney, 10% of the population is directly employed in the industry. And so if you pull or cut funding, that's going to have a huge impact on jobs, well-being, communities, and that point needs to be stressed.
Farmers may be asset rich, but they're very cash poor.
The farming union NFU Scotland wants the overall agriculture budget to increase by £50 million to £776 million, and for the £46 million, which was taken from the ag budget in 2022 and 23 to fund other priorities, to be returned. The Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs, Mary Goujon, addressed the rally. She says the Scottish Government is listening.
Now I recognise and I hear loudly and clearly your asks now of the Scottish Government and what you want to see in the budget that we'll be introducing next week. I can't outline any of the details of what will be put forward in that just now. But what I can say is I can reiterate the commitments that have been made by our First Minister. He was at AgriScot the other week where he made that firm commitment about the return of the ring fence money, which I know has caused a lot of concern with the industry. And today, just in the chamber at First Minister's questions, he made a cast iron commitment that the £46 million will be returned to the budget.
Well, the NFUS is also calling for farming's budget to be protected. In the past, money for farming has been ring-fenced, but this year it was included in the block grant given to the Scottish Government. I spoke to NFUS President Martin Kennedy just as the rally ended.
Well, the rally here today was obviously as a result of the UK Government budget, which obviously sent shockwaves through the whole industry in terms of the APR and BPRs. But also there's another really, really important element to that UK budget in terms of the ring fencing element of agricultural support, which has always been ring fenced for the last 50 years. The UK Government have actually decided to discontinue that ring fencing and put all funding into the block grant for the Scottish Government. So now the Scottish Government is absolutely 100%. They've got full autonomy in how much support is going to go into agriculture. So we had to make it crystal clear to not only the government but all parliamentarians that we need to make sure that they still ring fence an element of that block grant that's now come up to the Scottish Government.
How confident are you that that's what will happen?
We've heard a lot of warm words today. We've heard a lot of warm words from the First Minister in the past that is very supportive of the agricultural industry. We heard it again today from the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs, Mary Goujon, and the Agricultural Minister, that what we need to see is we need to see it in the budget next week. They always say that they're very supportive of agriculture because we know how important it is for Scotland, that farming and crofting is not in a good position. And the amount of people that is there today, because this is not just about farming and crofting in Scotland, this is about all the auxiliary industries that depend on the spend from agriculture as well, and they also depend on the critical mass of product that's produced by farmers and crofters in Scotland. So I think the message was loud and clear today.
The government may be sympathetic, but you are now competing, since Brexit, with all the other things that the Scottish Government has to spend money on. How do you argue that agriculture needs this budget, and actually you're arguing it needs a bigger budget?
Yeah, well, realistically, in real terms, the 620 million that was originally ring-fenced coming into agriculture, the buying power that actually has now is probably about half of what it was around 10 years ago. And the reason we're arguing for this case is, and you mentioned health, Charlotte, but let's not forget that, and I don't like the word competing because I don't think we should be competing, I think we should have that ring-fenced element, that if we don't have the ability to produce food in the manner we've become accustomed to, with all the health benefits it brings, with the growing standards we have, with the animal health and welfare standards we have, if we don't have the ability to do that and do it profitably, we will simply not do that. So when it comes to our ability to have affordable food, then if we can't produce it, then the people that are going to be worst affected are those that's most vulnerable.
Isn't the point of devolution that it's up to, in this case, the Scottish Government, how it spends money? So it's sort of inappropriate, really, for the UK government to ring-fence bits of the budget.
The idea of ring fencing it is securing that food security. It's a bit ironic given that the new government have said on many times in a platform that food security is national security. Well, given off the back of the budget and now what they've done with APR, BPR is a big issue, but actually discontinuing that ring fencing doesn't ring true to me that they're serious about food security.
Martin Kennedy from NFU Scotland. That's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Rebecca Rooney, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.